most of us are off work right now. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, if you're just joining us, I'd like to introduce you to Crystal Massey from the Immigrant Justice Campaign. And she'd like to talk to us about some pro bono opportunities. And I guess there are some opportunities as well, even if you have not worked as a paralegal, that you could help out with. There are some in-person and remote opportunities. So without any further ado, oh, and by the way, I'm Liz Garcia, your co-chair of, if we haven't met before, of the Pro Bono and Community Services Committee. We're two committees and we merged. And take it away, Crystal.
Thank you. And thank you for the invitation to talk with you all today. I'm Crystal Massey. I live down here in southern New Mexico in Las Cruces. So this is the Tri-City area of El Paso in Texas, Ciudad Juarez and Chihuahua in Mexico, and Las Cruces, New Mexico. So the three universities have interesting interchanges. It's a very nice area to live. And it's a place where we, in 2019, in the span of 7 months, we received over 17,000 refugees that were coming through and processing through to be with their families just in our little town. And we're a town of 100,000 people. And so right now, as we look at some of the decisions that the current administration is making in trying to respond to some of the decisions that were made by the last administration with regards to migrant protection protocols, better known as Remain in Mexico, and starting to process people through the border region again, we are starting to see families come in again. You all are in Austin, and I know Austin just because of some time I spent down in Dilley, Texas. So I got up to San Antonio more often than Austin, but I have been in your neck of the woods. If you haven't been down to Dilley's about 2.5 hours from you in the Austin area. If you go right down Highway 35, dead center between San Antonio and Laredo, Texas, is the largest of the family detention centers. It is one that I was there all of 2017. And in that year, we received over 12,000 women and their children. So there were a little over 30,000 people that were processed through that detention center in a year. It's an obscene amount of our tax dollars. It shouldn't exist. There's no earthly reason for it. It was put together and they said it was to be a deterrent. And right now I can let you know that they're starting to send people there again. There are several families that had been there for over a year that were slated to be deported just this past week. A lot of organizations signed on and fought and were able to keep those families in proceedings and in Dilley. They were not put on planes and were not deported. But now, in addition to those families that have been extremely traumatized and detained for over a year, there are also new families coming in who will hopefully be back in the more typical credible fear interview process, where they will be on a set schedule meeting with asylum officers and then processed out within 21 days, which is what they're supposed to be processed out under, according to the Florida settlement, though it's usually closer to 28 days that people are detained in the best of circumstances, when things are working better within the broken system that we have. So because Dilley is closer to you all, I do want to flag to you that especially for anyone who has had their vaccine, moving ahead, right now, there are no people going in person to Dilley outside of the very core group of attorneys that go in. But we expect this to change as more people are vaccinated and as more people are sent there again. So that is something that will always be available on our website. And I want to show you our website. Let's see here. 1 second. So as Liz mentioned, I work with the Immigration Justice Campaign. And the Immigration Justice Campaign is an organization that was formed, a campaign that was formed by the American Immigration Council and the American Immigration Lawyers Association, along with the American Immigrant Representation Project. So this is an organization where the impetus of this really did come from our work in Dili and our work in family detention centers. As more and more attorneys who had never worked with immigration before started seeing, wow, this is an incredibly messed up, crazy system. How is it possible that there's a complete lack of due process for asylum seekers? How is it possible that we are locking up immigrants in these isolated detention centers where they have a lot of difficulty finding access to attorneys, access to legal services? And so as people were learning more and more about that, because along with the thousands of people who were being detained in Dili, we also had over 2,000 attorneys and non-attorneys who were Spanish speakers who came to assist, who helped make that project run. Because there's just a handful of core staff, and then it works through having volunteers who can assist. Right now, there are several ways that they have developed that people can assist long distance. But as those more than 2,000 people who volunteered each year went back to their communities and started talking to people, they also started paying more attention to the adult detention centers in their region, the adult detention centers in their state, and the problems in those detention centers, especially in the privately run detention centers. Just last Saturday, a week ago, there was a man who had walked into detention several weeks before, healthy, strong, no underlying issues, etc. He contracted COVID soon after he arrived at the detention center, and he died last Saturday in detention. And he is not the first person to die of COVID in detention centers. ICE has continued to move people from one detention center to another, even in the middle of a pandemic. And we are working currently in 18 different detention centers around the country. What we do, going back to the impetus for the whole program, which really was born in Dili, of the attorneys who left Dili and then said, how can we be more involved? How can we learn more about immigration? How can we take on pro bono cases? And what we did was we developed the Immigration Justice Campaign. Now you can go to our website, which is immigrationjustice.us, and I'm going to send that link so that it can be shared with everyone. And you can go to the Immigration Justice Campaign website and you can join us. There are 3 levels of security for us because there are quite a few people who are not supportive of helping immigrants in detention. And so we have to be careful. We have a join button. So there's a certain amount that's available just to the general public. And then once you go and you join, and it's free to join, it's just becoming a member because it gives us your information so that if we're having any problems, we can kick people off of the higher level of access to information. And so I would encourage you to join, because if you join, it gives you more information about the kinds of cases that we're placing and the kinds of work we're doing and some of the specific volunteer opportunities that you won't see right away. At our website, there's a lot of information about us, about our model, and our model is really working with on-the-ground organizations who are already taking on all of the cases they can in a given detention center. So for example, the Otero Detention Center is down here in southern New Mexico, close to me. Well, about an hour away, because it's about an hour away from everything. It's also about 45 minutes from downtown El Paso. And there are on-the-ground groups like DMRS, the Diocesan Migrant and Refugee Services in El Paso, like Las Americas in El Paso, and like the Catholic Charities of Las Cruces here in Las Cruces, New Mexico, who all serve the Otero Detention Center. That's a detention center where they, when they are full, they keep it at 1,200 people detained there at any given time. And it looks like a warehouse. It's out in the desert. There's no cell phone reception there. It's very difficult for people to get in touch with their clients. And what we do is when those organizations are receiving calls from people who are detained, once they have taken on all the cases they can take on, and they're still seeing cases that would be wonderful pro bono placement cases, they're sending information about those cases to us. They're sending us an intake and referral form, and then we're working with our volunteer network to try to place those cases. So we have about 7,000 volunteer attorneys, and then we have about 7,000 people who have other skills, whether they're paralegals, bilingual and willing and able to work as interpreters or translators of written documents. One of our biggest needs is telephonic interpretation. So when you go to the volunteer section, just from the general public view, and you look at current volunteer opportunities, the current volunteer opportunities will tell you a bit about how you can help us and how you can work with us. And before you actually join us and become a member, it just shows you where we work. And you can see that we're working at a wide number of detention centers around the country. Our needs for people who are interpreters, and I know that quite a few of you are bilingual, one of our biggest needs is to have interpreters. I had 8 different cases this week that I would not have been able to place with the attorneys who were ready to take them on if I had not been able to find people who were ready and willing to do telephonic interpretation and other people who were ready and willing to do written translations. Right now, we have several clients this week who are detained in Louisiana. And down here in Louisiana, in detention centers that are a full 2.5 hours from the closest city, the attorneys are working to set up telephone calls. And because the work is remote right now for certain types of cases, we can have the attorneys then just loop somebody in who's willing to do telephonic interpretation. Usually when people sign up, they're signing up for a minimum of a 1-hour conversation to really help an attorney be able to converse with their client who is detained. Some detention centers, like Otero and El Paso, close to me, the clients can almost never get a call out for more than 15 or 20 minutes at a time. At other detention centers, like these in Louisiana, ICE is setting things up so that you can have a full 1-hour conversation with the client. And in some of the detention centers in Georgia, they're even allowing people to set up Skype telephone calls so that they can see each other face to face. And so it really varies widely what the rules are around communication from detention center to detention center and how difficult it can be for an attorney to get in touch with their client from detention center to detention center. We often need volunteers who can say, I need to be matched with someone because I have very limited time. I can commit to 1 hour that I can really work out with the attorney to make sure that I can be on call to help with communication. We also need people who sometimes can just be on call so that as an attorney is going through the incredibly frustrating process of trying to get in touch with their client who might be detained in El Paso or Otero, where right now there are lawsuits against both of those detention centers, specifically around the issue of lack of access to counsel, because even when people have attorneys, they're making it almost impossible for the attorneys to get in touch with their clients. We need people who can just be on call. And it's more of a, hey, can you be on call? So that if an attorney miraculously gets a call from their client, they can loop you in during X time frame. That's another thing we run into. Right now, we also have the occasional issue that will come up around advocacy. So there's a gentleman who was, by profession, an epidemiologist in Cuba. He made the incredible journey to come to the United States. He asked for asylum. He was detained first in Georgia, then Louisiana, then Houston, and then he was finally released from Houston. But he was, the entire time he was detained and being moved from one detention center to another in the US, it was all during COVID. And having a professional epidemiologist who was able to speak out from inside the detention center about the problems facing people in detention, specifically in the middle of a pandemic, and to be able to share his legal expertise was invaluable. And as soon as we started doing that, ICE released him. They did not want him talking to reporters anymore about what he was seeing in the detention centers. And so he is somebody who has now been released, but he has not been able to finalize all of the work on his case. Even so, he is somebody who really wants to speak out against detention, and he wants to speak out about his experience. And so right now, one of the last requests I received on Friday was from our communications team saying, hey, we have a reporter who doesn't speak any Spanish or not enough Spanish, who wants to communicate with this gentleman who has a very, very strong Cuban accent. And so sometimes I'll even have interpreters who say, no, I'm good with anybody from Mexico. But even some of the Honduran or Guatemalan idiomatic expressions I'm not as comfortable with. No, hay ciertos modismos que son difíciles. And the Cuban accent is very particular. And so we encourage our volunteer interpreters to be really open with us. We put notes into our roster so that we can even pull up and say, oh, this person is not comfortable with a Cuban accent. I'm not going to reach out to them about this particular need. And people will tell us, I'm not available for 3 or 4 months, but then contact me again. We're happy to do that. People might also tell us, hey, I have 10 hours this month that I could volunteer. Do you have placements that you could help me with? And in those cases, especially people who have paralegal experience as well or research experience, we love to then match you with somebody who's working on a full merits case. And in those situations, you really get to know a client well, and you get to know an attorney well. And in those cases, we also share with you different resources that we have put together through the years with the assistance of experts on secondary trauma. Some of you who might have worked in very difficult situations before might already be familiar with some of that, but it is a very real issue, especially if you're working with somebody whose life is literally in danger in the middle of a pandemic while they're detained, who might be suffering from mental health issues that are often tied to detention as well. We just placed a case this week with a young man who's just 20 and he has been in detention since he turned 18, and he's still in immigration detention. And so when people are working with those types of cases, it can be very heavy for the people who are taking on that work as well. And so we want to make sure that we are sharing the resources with you that we have to help you take care of yourself also in that type of situation. I'm down on the border. We're starting to see people coming through again. We still, while the administration has said that they are not going to continue the migrant protection protocols, and they're not going to have new people arriving at the border added to that process, there's still 20,000 people waiting in northern Mexico who are already in the migrant protection protocols or remain in Mexico process, who we're hoping that they will start paroling in. If that type of movement starts happening in larger numbers, then we know we are going to have larger and larger needs. In addition to the work we do with matching people to work specifically with attorneys, we also work closely with Freedom for Immigrants. And Freedom for Immigrants used to be known as Civic, and it's all about ending detention, but it's about accompanying people while they're in detention as well to make sure that they're not isolated and alone. And they have an incredible system that once you're signed up with us, you can also go to the volunteer section and go to the current volunteer opportunities, and you'll see a whole section of Freedom for Immigrant opportunities. All of those are for non-attorneys. And they always have a need for Spanish speakers to be on call. And we have already seen an uptick just Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week in the numbers of people that are being detained again. And so we know that Freedom for Immigrants will continue to have a growing need. They are there really as more of a visitation group. And during COVID, they have developed a lot of ways to do that visitation and to be there for people, just doing all of that remotely and telephonically. So right now, I want to stop, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I want to open it up for questions and see if you have any questions for me. And feel free to unmute yourself and just ask. You can make yourself visible. We can chat face to face. You can type questions into the chat box and I can answer them from there, whatever you're most comfortable with.
Hi, my name is Emily. I volunteered at the Carnes Pro Bono project in Carnes City here in Texas a year or so ago, pre-COVID. And so I don't speak Spanish, but I really did feel a connection to the work, and I would definitely like to get more involved. So for us non-Spanish speakers who but have sort of a passion for this, what do you where do you see us playing a role?
Are you a paralegal as well?
Yes, I am. Yeah, but okay. I work in litigation. I just, for some reason, I felt a calling to do this, and I went one day at Carnes, and I never was able to go back after because that was, COVID times. But I really did enjoy being there just that one day. It was kind of it was a very powerful experience.
Okay. I am going to send information about a couple of different projects to Liz so that she can share that information with you. There are several different ways that you can get involved right now. One is with Freedom for Immigrants. I mean, they always need Spanish speakers, but then, this week I needed Mandarin speakers, I needed Hindi speakers, and I needed English speakers. And so those are, it varies widely, but anyone who has skills as a paralegal, who is willing to assist an attorney who's working on a case, especially in some of the difficult detention centers, somebody who's willing to work alongside an attorney and say, hey, I know this is a ridiculous amount of time that you're having to spend hounding ICE. I'm willing to be your assistant in this manner and to be a thorn in their side and to very politely, repeatedly send a request on your behalf to set up a call with your client. These are the things that have to be documented for part of the litigation that's already ongoing against these detention centers. And then also in the hopes of getting that call set up, even if it's a short one, so that the client can talk with their attorney. That's one way. We also are seeing more traditional asylum cases already this week. People flying into airports and asking for asylum and then being sent to detention centers, given credible fear interviews. And then once an attorney takes on a full merits case for someone, they often need somebody, especially with paralegal skills, who can put together what's called a country conditions packet. And on our website, we actually have information. Once you've joined, you can see that. And you can always feel free to email me. I'll make sure Liz can share my personal email as well. And I can direct you to specific information we have on our website. Because there's a lot there, and I can direct you more easily. But we have information on country conditions work, and that is often 10 hours of work right there, just really delving into, okay, this is this person who's come from this country, this is why they had to flee, and then it's looking at what is our government saying in our own government documents about problems in that country that can be helpful, and it's pulling them up, it's underlining them, it's highlighting them, it's collating them, it's putting them together in a very specific type of packet. It's looking for other materials in English, and we need them in English because it's a nightmare trying to get things translated, so it's always better to find things in English. And those are places where we have found paralegals to be invaluable. And then right now, for people who are getting their vaccines and are then interested in travel, there are projects right now in person in Matamoros and in person in Tijuana, where people can go even as paralegals and spend a week on the ground, helping very specifically with what's called filling out an I-589. An I-589 is the specific form that you have to fill out that is the application for asylum. And so there are these projects that have existed for years now, in Tijuana going back 6 years, I think, and then in Brownsville just a few. And those are both projects where people can go in person on the ground. And then in El Paso, we are expecting to have more. We've been working on trying to get things set up so that we can do some remote work with some of the people who are still in Juarez. But right now, all of that is up in the air while we wait to see what happens with the people who are currently in the migrant protection protocols in that Remain in Mexico program. And so that's another aspect of what's happening. Yes, there's a lot. A lot of ways you can help. And for Freedom for Immigrants, there are a lot of people detained who speak English as well. And you can always sign up for that type of visitation. It literally helps keep people sane while they're detained. And especially some of the people who've been detained for obscenely long amounts of time, being willing to do visitation with someone is just invaluable. And that's another thing you can sign up for from our website.
And they are allowing people back in the detention centers?
It depends on the detention center. So in some, like there are 2 detention centers in Louisiana where they are literally requiring in-person representation from attorneys for final merits hearings. They're still allowing telephonic, but they are being absolutely inflexible. We had an attorney who had signed up to take on a full merits case. She was ready to go ahead on the asylum case. She has a daughter with pre-existing conditions. She has all every legitimate reason to be able to say, I cannot travel during COVID times. Here are doctor's notes. Here are all these different things. And the judges are just knee-jerk, denying every appeal for telephonic appearance, even though they've been doing telephonic appearances for 8 months now. And so in a couple of detention centers, especially some of those really isolated ones in Louisiana, the judges are being completely unreasonable. And so what we've had to do is we found people who have already been vaccinated or have already had COVID, people who with their jobs are already going into the detention centers in many cases, who are going to the detention centers and going to the courts because the judges are requiring it. Some of them are from law firms that are also providing all of the PPE that they need. They're required to provide their own PPE and required to appear in person in court. It's obscene. Those are the only two that I know of where everything is in person right now. Everything else is remote. And whenever we set up, even in non-COVID times, when we're setting people up and matching them for country conditions or for telephonic interpretation, all of that is remote work, always. And then for on the ground, for Matamoros and for Tijuana, some of that is in person right now still. Again, because some people are traveling again, and then some of that is being done remotely, but mostly they're looking for people who are now vaccinated and can come in person again.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that because I was visiting women at the detention center that's closest to Austin in Hutto. And I want to believe that most of the women there have been paroled by this point, but I don't know for sure. I think there's probably still a lot of people there.
Yeah. Yeah, I know at Dilley, most of the people have been released, but then there was this core group of 50 families that have been detained for over a year. They've had kids locked up under the care of these prison guards for over a year. And we've seen the damage that's done in just a month. And it's incredibly upsetting to see what is being done. And then now on top of that, you have more people arriving. And we've been hearing through the grapevine that Border Patrol doesn't have tests and they're not testing people before they send them to the detention centers. So lots of that problems waiting to happen. And we're hoping to we always have the options to take action. So we were thrilled to see that the administration said DOJ is not going to work with any more private prisons. Well, where we really need to see that is with DHS as well. I mean, they need to go hand in hand. Only 10% of the DOJ prisons are private prisons, and over half of the immigration detention centers are private detention centers. And so, yeah, we have a takeout on our website. We also have an advocacy section. We always encourage you to check out what's happening with advocacy. And when we have new advocacy opportunities, those are emailed to everybody who's joined and is a member. And we make it as simple as possible for people to just sign on. And right now the request is, let's please do the same with DHS that we've done with DOJ. Thank you for taking that first step. We need to close these private prisons down as well. Does anyone else have any other questions for me right now? No.
A member did ask me a question that I'll go ahead and repeat here, okay. Because I think they might be here. They might have forgotten they asked me. But as far as, we challenge our members to do at least 5 hours of pro bono a year, and we have a form for someone to verify to fill that out. Would we be able to, is there a contact person? Will we get that to you or to verify that?
Yes. Yep, that's no problem. I have a colleague, so I'm the volunteer engagement coordinator. The volunteer coordinator is Allison Vanson, and between the two of us, we can sign whatever you would need with regards to that. And then we also, some people also like to receive a certificate that thanks them for the number of hours that they've done in X period of time, or just a certificate that does not mention the hours but thanks them for their service during a given year. And we have those as well that we can send to people.
Thank you. And I know that's a lot of information for everyone to digest, but, you know, feel free to type your question in the chat, or if you think of anything, you know, you do think of ordinarily what we would be doing if COVID wasn't happening is we'd be actually holding in-person clinics. But I hope this opens up a whole host of opportunities for people even after we're doing things in person, because for one reason or another, if you have family or school or other responsibilities, remote opportunities to do pro bono volunteer work is fantastic. So,
yeah, and we literally, I think that a lot of times the focus ends up being on the attorneys, and we are always very quick to tell everyone that 70% of our cases last year are cases we would never have been able to place if it were not for the paralegals who were willing to work, especially on country conditions work, and for the volunteer interpreters who were willing to do volunteer interpretation and translation. We simply would not have been able to take on that work. So the world does not go around without the paralegals and without the volunteer interpreters. So thank you all for the hours that you give and for the work that you do. So it sounds like a good next step for you, Liz. I will get together some information about some of these others. I'll send it to you on Monday morning, and then you can share that with the group. And then also my email, please share that with everyone as well. And don't hesitate to reach out to me if you have any questions or would like more information about specific cases or specific opportunities. Okay? Oh, whoops, Liz, you're muted.
thank you so much. And thank you for your time, Crystal. And we will be in touch. Hopefully, you know, some people will at least take advantage of the remote opportunities. I know it's a big commitment to do the in-person stuff. Oh, yeah. But, you know, maybe somebody with vacation hours banked would be willing to do that, because, you know, I just cashed in all of mine from my last job. Otherwise, I would have. But I like that money, though, because I can put down a down payment on a car and maybe I can go to Dilley someday. So
nice.
I went there in May for a car protest.
Oh, good. So, were you there with the people who had been interned in the Japanese American internment camps that were there protesting?
I think they may have been there too, but I found out about this from Raíces.
Okay. Yep. Yes. Yeah. I'm trying to keep it going and letting the folk inside know that they're not alone. So thank you for being there. Yes.
Well, we appreciate all the work you do for our immigrant neighbors. Thank you again.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
So if you'd like to stick around, you know, I wanted to give us an opportunity to talk about, you know, the different, you know, volunteer and pro bono work we've been doing lately. And, you know, maybe that would be something we'd be willing to get involved in as a committee, you know, fellow members of CAPA. One of the things I've been doing here locally is there's a group that helps the homeless called Street Forum, and we distribute hygiene packs and you know, goods like blankets and gloves and things like that to people who are, you know, houseless and camping on the streets and under bridges and various places, you know, outdoors. You know, we also give them goodie bags with breakfast tacos and things like that. And even if you can't distribute the gifts, what we've been doing is we've been, you know, packing up things at a woman's house on Saturdays. Like I think it's in the Montopolis neighborhood in Southeast Austin. And, you know, we always take donations, whether monetary or, you know, things to go in the goodie bags. Especially if you're a blanket hoarder like I am. I just got rid of 4 blankets. They're keeping somebody else warm now, though. So, but yeah, I wanted to open up the floor and see if you want to talk about anything you're getting involved in and maybe we could do as a group. So feel free to unmute yourselves. Can you unmute yourselves?
Yeah, it works.
Okay, good. So Tracy, have you been doing anything?
Well, I'm just finishing up the ACC program, just like Jinra, and I'm doing my internship right now at the Attorney General's office in criminal appeals, but I haven't been doing any pro bono work just yet. But that was really helpful. And someone asked the question about non-English speakers, or I mean, non-Spanish speakers. So that was really helpful to hear about the opportunities for non-Spanish speakers in immigration.
Oh yeah, they definitely need people to do the country research because they don't have the internet in there. You know, they're barely getting to make phone calls as it is. So, you know, it really helps. You know, I actually corresponded with a young man. I still correspond with him because unfortunately he's since been deported. But he was a young gay man from Ghana and, you know, an asylum seeker, and he was in Mississippi, and Casa Marianella was all ready to take him in. But, you know, unfortunately, they weren't able to, I guess, you know, convince the judge that this was, you know, he had a good reason to stay here. But thankfully, if the immigration reform bill passes that the Biden administration introduced, there's a good chance that deportation may be reversed. And he does have an attorney that's helping him out now. So hopefully he'll be able to come back here because it's not safe for him there. You know, I remember somebody was talking about volunteering at the food bank here locally, you know, again, just looking for ideas.
I actually live in Dallas. I meant to mention that earlier. I just finished the UT paralegal program. So I was wondering what opportunities there would be for me. I mean, obviously a lot of it's remote. So if, you know, if there are opportunities to help Kappa until I transferred to the Dallas paralegal programs. So any way to help you guys, and I obviously want to sign up for the immigration stuff. So just wondering what's needed from me if I'm living outside of the Austin area.
Well, I mean, we put you directly in touch with these organizations, and if the opportunities are remote, it doesn't matter where you're at. So you can actually go directly to their website and create your profile to be considered for volunteer opportunities through the Immigration Justice Campaign. You know, anybody who's here locally, if there's anything they want to talk about, things that they do on the ground here. I mean, I'm open to hearing about remote things you've been doing, but I've been looking for remote opportunities for folks because I know a lot of people don't want to get out right now during COVID, or they can't. You know, so you're welcome to, you know, help out there if I find out about anything else, but this is the consistently, you know, where the most need is that I've seen is with the Immigration Justice Campaign. There's not a whole lot of remote things going on. I know that there's a family law legal clinic that was happening, but it looks like they're fully staffed. So.
Well, I mean, I'm definitely interested in helping the Immigration Justice Campaign. So I'll probably be looking at that afterward. But yeah, I would like, as you know, I want to be more involved in some of the pro bono stuff for sure.
Thank you. So am I the only one that's trying to volunteer anywhere right now in person? I'm only halfway vaccinated. I'll probably start doing more stuff after I get the second vaccine, the second Moderna. But I know that I have 2 qualifying conditions. And I lucked out, and my office happened to get their hands on 5 extra appointments from the county attorney's office. I've been striking out everywhere else I looked. So, but yeah, if anybody knows of anything else, you feel free to email me. I think everybody has my email by now, pro bono at cappatexas.org. I can type that in the chat as well. But yeah, it's eventually, we'll start having, I think they used to do like a reception, for pro bono volunteers every year, and they would give out awards. Obviously, we're not doing things in person right now, but it's good to know, though. There is a form on our website. If you do any pro bono or volunteer work that's, related to the legal profession, then, definitely get that form, turn it into us, and we can keep track of your volunteer hours. So.
I did. So immigration justice has some trainings that you can do. I want to volunteer more with the immigration stuff, but I didn't even know the correct terminology. And they have some great trainings that are free if you sign up to volunteer. I think Liz, you had recommended that I do that, so I did. And but also CASA of Travis County always needs volunteers, and you are doing. I'm in the middle of writing a court report right now for that, and just it's giving me some experience as somebody new to the legal field in attending mediations, talking and I am preparing to. We're closing out a case right now, so preparing to testify before the judge to say, hey, this is what I think is in the best interest of these children. So if anybody wants more information on that, I'm happy to share my experience with that as well.
Ashley, are those remote opportunities or are they in person?
They are all remote right now.
Okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So there usually is a requirement that you visit the children in person once a month, give or take, but it is all remote right now. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to do in person, but I can't until
I agree. I agree.
And I actually was going to go through the training to do that till I got hired by the public defender's office. And I was like, oh, there may be potential for a conflict of interest in there. So, and plus it is kind of a time commitment, but I mean, it pulls at my heartstrings. So I'd like to do that someday.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you're in family law is when they really are like, I don't know if we want you in this, just because there can be a conflict of interest, but they're willing to work with you too, because they need volunteers all the time.
And you just go to the website and sign up?
Yes, so you sign up for volunteer sessions. You will need to do a pretty intense training that they take you through. It's all virtual right now as well, but they'll take you through that training. And there's a couple different things that you can do with CASA. Mostly what people know is the being the guardian ad litem, so working directly with the children. There are a couple of other volunteer opportunities they have, like family finding. Those are cases that you're assigned to for 2 weeks at a time, and you're really just diving in and trying to find, if a family, if children are taken away from their parents, looking to see if there's family that they can stay with before they go just to a foster family. So they have that and some other research opportunities as well.
I have something to add. This is Emily again. I'm sorry, I'm on my phone because I could not get connected on my laptop. But I am on the board of a local nonprofit called Flow Code, and we support all the local population with menstrual products. And as an aside, AYLA is doing a donation drive for us this month. If anybody is interested in donating any tampons, pads, individually wrapped wipes, I just kind of thought of that off the top of my head, or if Kappa is interested in doing anything. We're not doing anything in person right now either, but we do support communities and schools, Central Texas, which is Bastrop County and Hayes County as well, with all the menstrual products in the schools. So anyway, just thought I'd kind of throw that out there if anybody is interested in that, or if anybody is interested in, if Kappa is interested in doing anything with us in the future. But that's one of my big things that I'm doing. And then I'm also on the Booster Club board for my son's school, and I'm a troop leader for my daughter's Girl Scout troop. So when we just did a blanket drive as well, and are also doing what's it called? Keep Austin Beautiful. It's doing like a neighborhood cleanup thing next weekend. So those are just kind of some other things that if anybody was interested in, you know, those are things that are out there that people can get involved in.
So if you could do me a favor for the benefit of anyone who's not able to make it to this meeting, if you could email Pro Bono, you know, anything that's upcoming, because they finally had let me get access to making some changes on the website. I know if you've looked at the Pro Bono section, some of those things in there are kind of old. I still need a little bit of coaching so I don't mess up the coding on it. But if you have anything that's upcoming, we can get it up on the website, and more people will see it probably. And then we can also do an email blast too. So
yeah, the Keep Austin Beautiful thing is really cool. I think the one for next weekend is full. A good friend of mine actually is working for them as their community fundraiser, their fundraiser leader. She is in charge of all that. And so I think the one for next weekend is actually full, but they're doing these monthly. And they give you a little kit that includes like gloves and masks and trash bags and grabbers and all this stuff. Sounds pretty cool. We're doing it for the first time. My daughter and I will just be doing it around our neighborhood next weekend. So that might be something kind of, it's not quite remote, but it's not, you know, it's more safe than a lot of opportunities out there.
absolutely, as long as you can social distance, and you know, anything you do in person, obviously, I think everybody here understands you have to wear a mask, you have to wash your hands or use hand sanitizer, and obviously don't be within sneezing, breathing, coughing distance of other people. I mean, we want everybody to stay healthy so that you can come back. And when we can do things in person, we can see all your lovely faces. So.
But yes, I will email you. I meant to add that too, but I'll email you about those things.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So if anybody else has any questions or any opportunities you'd like to talk about, any burning desires? No? Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. And, you know, please let me know if you have any questions or if you have anything you'd like to share with other Kappa members. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.